Every veteran has a voice, from the front lines to the home front and every moment in between. Welcome to the Veteran's Voice. I'm your host, Matt Wells. This is dedicated to capturing those unique experiences, preserving our shared history, and highlighting the incredible veterans who continue to serve our local communities. So please, pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, and join us as we share the stories that define who we are. I'm your host, Matt Wells. Today's guest on our first podcast is outgoing commander of VFW Post 7824, Greg Gilbertson. Thank you very much for joining me, Greg.
Thanks, Matt.
So let's talk about your origin a little bit. What branch of service were you in?
United States Navy, 1990 to 2020.
Okay. What inspired you to join the Navy?
I was inspired, really, I had a mentor. My uncle, Roger Gilbertson, was my mentor, and he was in the Navy. And I grew up in southwestern Idaho, near the Snake River Valley area. And like my uncle Roger, didn't necessarily want to grow up on the farm and live the farm life, even though it was, interesting and fun at the same time. But kind of followed my uncle's footsteps into the Navy, traveling the seas and seeing other parts of the world, building a future for myself through my Navy career. And he served as my first mentor in my Navy career.
So, I guess a question I would have is, where did you serve? What did you serve on ships? Were you land based? What was your What did you do in the Navy?
So after boot camp in 1990, after I graduated high school, went to boot camp. Left for boot camp July 5th, 1990. Graduated boot camp in September, at some point, I can't remember the exact date, in 1990, in San Diego, California. Recruit Training Command in San Diego, and I stayed there for my radio communications A school in San Diego as well.
So what is an A school?
So an A school
that don't know.
So an A school for most sailors, not all, but most sailors, that's their initial schooling after boot camp.
Okay.
To learn their jobs, what they're going to be doing whenever they get to their next command, which is typically for a junior sailor is going to be a ship, for the most part, And so after my A school was over in December of 1990, I reported to the ship, and my uncle was able to hook me up because he was a master chief, and he got me on the same ship with him through the detailers. And so I reported in January of 1991, and we were off for out to sea February of 1991 in Operation Desert Storm, heading to the Persian Gulf.
Very cool. So, what were some of your most memorable things that happened during your time in service?
Well, my initial time in service, I think the most memorable things on shipboard. So the first part of my career was shipboard on 3 different ships. And then the middle part of my career was in the reserves. And then towards the end, it was also still in the reserves to include a couple of 3 deployments during Operation Enduring Freedom. To Tampa, Florida, and then transferred out to Bahrain in the Persian Gulf, and then eventually my last big deployment in 2012 to 13 was Afghanistan. I'd say my biggest, fondest memories is the camaraderie that I built with my shipmates on the ship, where some of them were still good friends today and stay in contact. From we call them Westpac deployments, leaving San Diego out to the Persian Gulf, Northern Arabian Gulf area. And then, camaraderie ship, I guess, was a theme all the way through. And, getting to know people, getting to know sailors. Once I got into leadership positions, when I made Navy Chief Petty Officer in 2010, then it became more of a worker bee, so to speak. And then it's more mentoring and leading sailors throughout the remainder of my career, from 2010 to 2020. I love friendship, mentoring, guiding, leading, directing, delegating. That's just, I enjoyed that in people. People made it the best, and got to see a lot of places in the world.
That's wonderful. Outside of your uncle, who are some of your biggest influences when you were in the Navy?
Well, let's see. I had several influences. Some of them were same grade as me, same rank as me. But I had a chief, radioman chief, Giles Herb, was an influence on me. Some of my, there's a lot that I can't really name here, but several that were just friends of mine that we would hang out, outside of off-duty hours in San Diego and at the beaches down there. As I got older in my career, I would say some of my biggest influences, a Master Chief, retired now, his name's Corey Guy, was a significant influence on me prior to my deployment to Afghanistan. And then I met several chiefs, several officers, and even other branches. I got to work with other branches in my deployments. Probably the biggest leader, though, in my whole career, in my Navy career and my civilian career with the VA, is a Commodore named Tim Rutterow. He was our Commodore in Afghanistan. So he was essentially a Navy captain, but he'd gone through the enlisted ranks first.
Okay.
So he was a tremendous leader. It took a lot of notes watching his style and his communication ability and his leadership traits.
So did you follow him? Did you mean to follow him from the Navy to the VA, or was it kind of more of a happy accident?
Well, he was never at the VA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was the Commodore or the CO of the unit I was joining.
Okay.
When we went to Afghanistan, so he retired from the Navy well before me, but he never went to the VA. If you're asking about some of my VA influences,
we'll get there in a little bit, because I know that's you. Because I know going from the Navy to the VA to the VFW, you're gonna have mentors that.
Yeah.
So we'll get there though.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be the most challenging part of your military service?
Well, the challenging part was definitely when you have a family and you go on deployments. And my deployment within 30 days of 9/11, being deployed I had a 4-year-old daughter at home, been married to my wife for about 3 years, and she was about 7 months pregnant with our son. 9/11 happened. That changed like a lot of people in this country, in the world. That life just changed after that. So that was definitely a challenging aspect of my career. And then, after that was definitely was certainly deployments, balancing. I used to mentor my sailors and, ask them how they balanced a 3-legged stool, being family, your work, if you're a reservist, your civilian job that pays the bills, and then your Navy career that can be very demanding as well. So I'd say balancing those deployments and drill periods and active duty time and things like that. That's really challenging.
Would you say that you were talking about mentoring?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be one of the biggest lessons that you still use today? Is your mentoring skills and your what other skills do you still use today from the time in the Navy?
Yeah, I do definitely believe mentoring is huge. I've kind of gotten big here in recent years on coaching, and what I mean, and there's a difference between coaching and mentoring. Mentoring is kind of providing the answers when sailors have, or anybody has difficulty, challenges, providing them the answers. Coaching is more of them coming up with the answers by asking the right questions. Coaching is a passion of mine here recently, and I think just leadership and being honest and being have some integrity about yourself and hold yourself accountable. There's a lot of leaders that don't hold themselves accountable, and that's big on me to hold myself accountable as much as I can, because I'm no different. So those are some of the traits: mentoring, coaching, and accountability and delegating, effective delegation.
I can speak to that one. In the time that I've gotten to work with you, I've seen you've delegated stuff to me, but I've also seen you delegate to other people. And I think you have tried to, when you delegate, you do it in such a way that allows people to come along with you and to get you kind of you push people in such a way that it kind of stretches them and not it's like you are one of those leaders that I've been around that says more, let's go do this instead of go do it.
Right.
And I've really appreciated that with you.
Yeah, thank you.
So give me just a kind of a quick what daily life was like during your deployment. Or during a deployment, I guess.
Okay, well, daily life out to sea is you're pretty much just work, you do your job, you have some, you eat your meals, you hang out with your shipmates, and play games. And we played chess, or not chess, but checkers, and dominoes a lot, and sometimes some cards. Watch movies together, and just enjoyed each other's company. My Bahrain and Afghanistan deployments was more of, it was definitely more focused. The world changed on a dime after 9/11, like I mentioned earlier. So the op tempo was definitely increased. Operations tempo was definitely increased, more enhanced, and more focused. But we did some of those same things that I mentioned about, enjoying each other's company, playing some games, but getting the mission done.
What kind of ships did you serve on?
So my first ship was a guided missile cruiser, the USS Leahy. It was the same ship I served with my uncle for almost 2 years. And then in 1993, I went to another ship called the USS Vandegrift, a fast frigate. They were both out of San Diego. And then my first reserve ship, when I joined the reserves, but then got stationed on a ship, a shipboard unit, was the USS Leyte Gulf. And that was also a guided missile cruiser, and that was out of, at the time, Mayport, Florida. It's since moved to Norfolk, Virginia, and actually all three of them have been decommissioned now, with the Leyte Gulf being decommissioned about a year and a half to 2 years ago.
So is there a particular mission or event that really kind of stands out for you that you can talk about?
Yeah. Well, I would say in my early shipboard days, and I went through the Straits of Hormuz, which has been in the news a lot lately, 6 times. So those were definitely adventures in and out. But one of the times, my second deployment in 1992 to 1993, was we served as the air traffic control, if you will, for Mogadishu, Somalia. So there's a movie and there's a book out called Black Hawk Down. So that's the time frame of that, close to it anyway. I don't have the specific dates right now, but we were the air traffic control for about 2 weeks, floating off the coast of Somalia, and while the CBs and other branches were rebuilding the air tower and the airstrip, we floated around there in circles around off the coast of Somalia, Mogadishu, Somalia, and we would air traffic control the planes in and out.
Very cool.
For about 2 weeks.
So, having served in a combat zone, how does that change your perspective on your life?
Well, that's a good one. Well, it does definitely make you think that you have to watch your back at all times. Sometimes you can't necessarily trust everybody that's around you and in your horizon, so to speak. That was just in a combat zone, we were getting attacked pretty regularly, mortar attacks over the fence and other things, and then we also served as we call them fallen comrade or ramp ceremonies, where an individual was killed in Afghanistan, and they would come to Bagram Air Base, is where I was at, and we would get notifications at all hours of the day, fallen comrade ceremony at 2 in the morning or 10 in the morning or at noon or 2000 at night. We would all, those that could, if you were able to, we'd all go down to the airfield on the airstrip, and we'd render final salutes to those that were killed. And sometimes it was 1, 2, or 3 people, and as many. The 10 months I was there, it was up to 7 or 8 a few times.
Wow.
At a time. So that's reality right there. That's a real thing that you experience. I experience.
Do you still feel that when you're, in your daily life? Do you feel the effects of that?
Yes, because I remember it. I remember doing a lot of those ceremonies, and I probably, the 10 months I was there, I probably did in the neighborhood of 30 to 50. I don't know the exact number, but I volunteer at the USO, United Services Organization in Portland, and our current operations center manager there that I volunteer for, his son was killed in Afghanistan the same year I was there.
Wow.
And so I'm almost certain, and I tell the manager there that I'm almost certain I was probably at his son's fallen comrade ceremony. We didn't find this out until later. We started talking about it. So that every time I see the manager, his name's Jeff, I think of his son Andrew.
So,
and that
did that kind of bond you two together?
Yep.
Had
a connection.
Yeah, you created a connection there.
Yeah.
When you were deployed,
mm-hmm.
other than obviously missing your wife and daughter and soon-to-be son,
mm-hmm.
What other things about home did you miss?
Well, I just missed, the regular stuff, hanging out with my neighbors or friends and barbecuing and just having a good time and, going and walking the dog. Missed that. Missing to watch some of the sporting events that were live. Just missed the general home feeling. But one thing I did find out, and I learned this from my first deployment to my second deployment in the reserves. My first deployment, I came back home after a year and basically tried to get back into the routine that I thought we should be in. And I found out from my wife Dawn that no, they had created a new routine, and I had to mold or mend into their routine rather than create the routine that I thought it should be.
Right.
And then so I found that out the hard way. And then in my second deployment, which was 10 months long, I eased my way into it. I realized that I can't just come in and kicking and screaming, so to speak, and try to make it my way. And my wife recognized that it was a much different second time compared to my first time.
So yeah, I know for me, I wasn't married when I deployed, and so when I came home, I could literally just pick up right from where I left off, and
well, that was my shipboard deployments.
Yeah.
I wasn't married, so it was.
But yeah, I can understand if you're married and trying to pick up that would be incredibly it's because I find that not only do you serve, your spouse serves.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
It's definitely not the same, but they're both serving, and it's and how you work together to get to make it work is really important.
Oh yeah, and I told her quite often she had the harder job of the two while I was gone. I give her a ton of credit. Yeah.
So, what makes the bond between veterans unique from any other type of friendship that you might have?
That's another good question. I think just veterans, no matter what branch we served in, I say this often, no matter what branch we served in, we all serve for the same flag. We just have a different mission to accomplish, depending on the branch that we're in. And so I feel like I can connect with veterans in all branches. If they treat me with respect, I will treat them with respect as well. And so I think that's probably a bond that I don't have the same with friends that never served or never served in a combat zone or a war zone. But I think overall veterans or a very big passion of mine and many others in the VFW and other military support organizations. And so I you just have that bond and connection, and understanding that, hey, we're all struggling in some way, with life after service, and sometimes we try to figure out what our purpose is, and so, not that I don't get along with friends that never served, because I do. I'm a pretty good people person, I think, and really can find common ground in anybody. But veterans definitely have a special connection for me.
Yeah, I found that, because I always say that it's like I can harass or give a bad time to any veteran, regardless of branch.
Yeah.
Because we have that commonality. We earn the right to give each other a hard time.
Yeah.
I give you a hard time about being Navy. You give me a hard time about being Army.
Yeah.
It's like when we were at the Army birthday, you were wearing an Army hat, and I said, "Hey, I'm surprised your head didn't catch on fire." But let somebody that never served, regardless of whether they served in a combat zone or not, let anybody who has never served say that same thing, and everybody jumps on them because it's just we've earned the right, I guess, to harass each other.
Absolutely.
Because I get it's like people say brothers and sisters, and I've taken it to, it's just family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you served active duty, and then you transitioned over to the reserves. What was that transition like for you?
So that was an interesting transition. That happened in July of 1994. I got out of active duty, left San Diego, went back to my home in Idaho, and 2 months later I joined the reserves in October. I guess 3 months later. And so when I went into the reserves, I didn't quite know what to expect. In some aspects, I feel like maybe I should have never left active duty and stayed on active duty. But I still wanted the Navy and the military to be part of my life. And it just so happens to be on the reserve side of things. This is before I met my wife, and we had a family. So I guess I expect drill weekends to be more, in the beginning, to be more structured and more training involved and more details and specifics, and it wasn't that way. It was kind of like just be bring the uniform, get into muster, and we'll do this and this. Quite honestly, sometimes there was drill weekends where we didn't do much but just read the paper on some drill weekends. For me, I know that wasn't the case for everybody, but once 9/11 happened, then it all changed. And drill weekends were extremely busy with training, making sure our medical, appointments and medical checks were all done. And then if you got orders, then you had to, train up on where you were going and who you're going with, and train up on the units that you will be joining. So it was definitely different. From my initial reserve time starting in 94 to when after 9/11, it was very eye-opening and definitely impactful to me. I remember it.
So if you were to talk to somebody who is transitioning, they're going, whether it be going from active duty to civilian life, or the reserve, or going into the reserve, what advice would you give them?
That's a good point, because some of my coaching that I mentioned earlier, coaching preparation and training that I've had, there does involve a lot of transition, career transition, personal development transition, family transition. So there is a significant amount of transition. People don't realize that, but there is a lot of your individual life where you're transitioning from one thing to another, job, family, military, whatever the case may be. Specifically from going from active duty to a reserve unit, just and being retired now for 5 years or 6 years, I'm sure things have changed, but active duties, you live it, breathe it. 5, 6, 7 days a week. Or in the reserves, it could be as low as 2 days a week up to a full month, depending on what the situation is. So you just gotta kind of take it as it is.
So you kind of learn to roll with the punches and just kind of see what comes along. And,
Yep, you got to be flexible, definitely, absolutely.
So you talked about transitioning to civilian. How would you say that being in the military affected your civilian career?
Well, the majority of my civilian career from I started with the VA. Officially, I started in 2003, but with my military buyback for pay purposes, it started in 1998. So, and there's a whole that's a whole scenario for another time. But so I would say that being in with the VA or the federal government in general, or really anywhere you work, but specifically to me, being a veteran at the VA was extremely enlightening because I knew most of my coworkers were veterans. And I think, I don't know what the exact specifics are today, but I think when I left the VA, I would say about 30% of VA employees were veterans.
So when you were looking for a job, and did you specifically seek out a job that would allow you to either work with veterans or allow you to work for veterans? Or was it kind of I needed a job and this is what happened?
Yeah, so after my 2001 to 2002 deployment, initially I started at Tampa, Florida, at Deputy Command U.S. NAVCENT, and then 6 months into that, they transferred me out to Commander U.S. NAVCENT out in Bahrain. So I went from Tampa to Bahrain, which was Bahrain is a much bigger Navy fleet area, concentration area than Tampa was. And so that transition was, what was the question again?
So did you seek out working for like working with veterans, or when you were looking for your
so when I come back from that deployment in October 2002, prior to coming back, I was told, hey, you need to start looking at federal jobs to take that experience you had just built for that last year, and it was in IT, information technology related stuff. So I was instructed or guided by a couple folks on my deployment to start seeking out USA jobs, to start applying, and so I hit the ground running. As soon as I got back, I started applying. The company that I worked for was essentially disbanding. I think I came back. It was called Idacorp Energy. They were disbanding, and I came back, and I knew that the writing was on the wall. The company was not going to last. So they gave us a few resume writing classes, a little bit of a severance. And so I just started applying and writing resumes, and the Roseburg, Oregon VA called me for an IT help desk job in March of 2005. And I started Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2005 in Roseburg at the VA. Moved the family, my wife had to change careers, and my daughter had to start in a new school in the next fall. So that was another transition that I had to do. But I definitely wanted to keep veterans because I want to pay it forward.
Makes sense.
And that was my aspect. That was my avenue to do that, gaining experience along that career path as well.
Yeah. So how, having worked for the VA and seeing, how do you... this is not a gotcha type of question, and please don't take it that way.
Right.
How do you feel that veterans are served by the VA now? Or in the time in your career there.
In my experience, I had nothing but great service from the VA, being a patient as well as an employee. I know not everybody has the same case, and there's situational
Right.
situation cases or basis. But I think everybody at the VA, most everybody that I've ever worked with, in whether that was in Roseburg, Vancouver, or I worked a little bit in Denver, Colorado for the VA, and then remote or virtual jobs. Everybody that I've had connection with at the VA, or most everybody, I felt that they were in to help the veterans.
I can, and I'll say the same thing, is that having dealt with the VA on a service side, just getting service from them, everybody that I've ever dealt with there has, they seem to have the same feeling you do, is that, hey, you know what, we're here to pay it back or pay it forward.
Right.
And so, yeah, you read in the news that certain things are going on, and it's like, well, that's unfortunate, but but I don't think that's indicative of the VA as a whole. I think people at the VA are really there to, yes, it's a job. Yes, they want to be paid, and but I think that there's also somewhat of a calling for them, and I think it kind of sounds that was the same way for you.
Absolutely, definitely a calling.
Another calling, I guess, is the VFW for you. How did you, or what made you decide to become involved with the VFW?
So I connected with the VFW, my specific post 7824 in Vancouver, Washington, and a little bit with the sister post, if you will, in Camas 4278. I went to a few meetings, both posts, and both of them served people really well. But I just had that connection in Vancouver, and so I started going there and meeting people and talking with people, and kind of finding out the organization, and the people that were involved and how things worked. But what really got me involved is they were there. So when I retired from my retirement ceremony from the Navy was in April of 2021. I'd retired in August of 2020, but due to COVID, my ceremony had to be delayed a little while. But I used the VA in Vancouver as the reception party after my retirement. So a lot of my shipmates came and partaked in a good time, that we had there at the post, as well as the post membership. Jim McHenry, Hummer Jim, was the post commander at the time, and we were able to have a really good time. And I had my family and my friends that were able to participate in that reception, and I've been told since then it's probably one of the best parties they've had at the VA in a while, or at least prior to that. So I developed a connection that way, and one of the gifts that the Chief's Mess in Portland gave me was money to pay for to help with my lifetime membership. Oh. That was one of the parting gifts as the Chief's Mess in Portland gave me as a retirement gift. And I was able to have friends in Portland and Vancouver and over in Idaho that I had met over the years. They all came to my retirement, as many as they could make it. Even Springfield, Oregon, some came up from there too. So it was fun. It was good to have an opportunity to have close family and friends there. And so when they paid for my lifetime membership, then I was really interested then, and we started going to the meetings. And then a couple of years later, 2022, about a year later, I guess, after I became a lifetime member, I went in to be the post quartermaster. Did that for a year, and then that followed that up with 2 years as the post junior vice commander. And then I was supposed to be the senior vice commander, but due to health concerns from another member, he was not able to take command the year that I would have been his senior vice commander. So I jumped up to the commander for a year. And now I'll continue on now as the post adjutant, which is a very important job that I learned a lot about as the post commander, how to do it right. Then I'm starting to move into the district level for next year.
So what are as the commander, and then now going forward as the senior vice commander for the district level, mm-hmm. What are some programs or activities that you are really passionate about that you want to make, I guess for the lack of a better term, is leave as your legacy?
I think community service, getting out in the community. The VFW definitely needs to be involved in the community, whatever community that is, have a presence, make an impact in the community. Whether that's through, parades or information or recruiting booths, or just in general in the community, to let everybody know that you're there and involved and have a voice, right? We have a significant voice in our county. We have a significant voice within the community, within the county counselor's office and other city as well, and we need to utilize that voice.
So, when you say we have a voice in the county, or what do you mean by that?
So, a voice in how we take care of the veterans. Our motto, is veterans helping veterans. And so that's we need to walk those shoes, right? We need to walk those shoes and be out there to help the veterans. I think a real highlight in the community, I love going to the VA Community Living Center and participating in bingo to the patients, the game of bingo to the patients. That's a fun thing I love to do, at least once or twice a month. But then I also like to get involved with the youth too. I've led some of the programs to help recognize the youth, from high school down to grade school, or elementary school, at our post and even in our district as well. So, the community service, veterans helping veterans, and youth activities is probably the three passionate areas for me currently.
Very cool. Yeah. I think for me, giving back, and then again, the whole youth aspect of it is important for me as well. So what do you wish veterans and non-veterans knew about the VFW? More specifically veterans, but if a veteran would come to you and say, why should I join the VFW?
Well, everybody has a little different motive. They're motivated by different things. For me, when I joined the Navy, I was really motivated about travel and seeing the world and kind of getting out of the farms of Idaho a little bit. Other people were motivated by money. Other people were motivated by they needed to pay bills. Yeah. So I think each veteran is motivated by something different. So what do you want to bring to the table? Do you want to get involved in the community? Do you want to be a go-to person at the post that people rely on for, communicating with and talking with and sharing your story with, that will listen, that will truly listen? Does a veteran just want to go and hang out and just kind of observe, things at the post level? But I think the biggest thing is they just need to realize that, hey, we are the largest, 1.3 million, roughly. Don't know exactly, but we're right around there. We're the largest veteran organization that has a voice with Congress to take care of veterans. And as we've learned recently, we don't want to give up one benefit to get another benefit. We've earned both benefits, so we need to get everything that we've earned. And we have a voice, and people need to realize that voice can be strong, especially, the more people involved.
So, to that point, if a veteran's like, why, you said that, it's like, you were kind of talking about why why veterans should be involved, because to get the benefits that we've all earned.
Right.
So on a, that's on the national level. What about, like, how does Post 7824, how does it actually support veterans and their families?
Well, I can really only speak within the last recent years. I can't speak beyond that, but I would say we help families. We have a veteran relief fund, so we help families, get reestablished in their lives if they have, things that need to be taken care of, whether that's help pay for utilities, help pay for their rent, potentially help help with car issues, transportation issues, maybe some job seeking opportunities. So we can help in a lot of ways. We have connections to help people. If we can't do it directly, we can reach out to the connections that can. And that's what we need to realize, is just because, I firmly believe, let's try, and if there's any situation, let's try to get to yes. How do we get to yes to take care of veterans and their families?
So, taking care of veterans, how can non-veterans, civilians, how can they support veterans and the VFW?
I would say they could support in a lot of different ways. It just kind of depends on the individual, right? Some people, do they want to support financially? Do they want to donate clothing, or do they want to donate, maybe to the homeless veteran population? Do they want to join along with the VFW and in our other organization, the VFW Auxiliary, in supporting the veterans' efforts and taking care of veterans? And so there's a variety of different ways that they can do that. It just really depends on what the person is passionate about and what they can do personally. So I encourage everybody out there that listens or is involved to think about how they want to help, and try to make it happen.
So we're going to wrap this up, but looking back, what are you most proud of from your time in the military?
Well, I'm most proud of, on an individual basis, the rank that I achieved as an E9 Master Chief Petty Officer. I'm extremely proud about that, because it doesn't happen. It's not something that just is handed to you. You have to earn it. So I'm definitely most proud about my military service, and being able to support my family along the way throughout my career. And now I will be getting my retirement pension here in a few years through the reserve pension processing. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that I'm really proud of, is the opportunity. Well, the rank that I achieved, but also the opportunity to meet people along the way and maintain some friendships, like I mentioned earlier, even with shipmates that I served with back in the early 90s. And so, it's just something I hold near and dear to my heart.
It sounds kind of cool that you created these friendships and these bonds with people that you've first served with, going all the way back probably to your A school or even basic training. I think that's one of the things that, as a veteran, a lot of times we do that a lot. Is we create those bonds, and it's like, no matter where we're at in our careers, it's like we still
never forget
them. But it's like, even if we don't see each other for years, and and all of a sudden we find ourselves in the same place as somebody we served with, and it's like you almost can pick up right where you left off, and you're like, either harassing each other or just catching up, or but it's like almost like no time has passed.
That is true. That is very true. Yeah.
So, last question: what does patriotism mean to you today?
I think patriotism really means respecting those that have gone before us, that have allowed us our freedoms we have today. And sure, I think patriotism is raising the flag, waving the flag, and all that, but deep down, respecting those that have gone before us, that are no longer here with us, or no longer able to contribute as much as they used to. The older generation, because they paved the path for all the veterans today. So I think that's patriotism, and you don't necessarily have to respect the office certain people hold in government, but you should respect where we've come from to where we are now, and a lot of that was on the backs of those soldiers, sailors, Marines, guardsmen, airmen that are no longer here today. We owe, there's no debt of gratitude that we could ever pay that would even measure up to what they've earned from us.
That is very well said, and I think that's a great way to end this. So, anyway, Greg, I thank you for allowing me to record your stories, and hopefully this becomes the first of many stories that we record for our veterans, just so that we never forget. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Our uniforms might be put away, but our mission never ends. I'm Matt Wells. Watch each other's 6, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Veteran's Voice.